And the meeting is now live on YouTube.
Thank you. And I have 6:58. $6:59. I'm getting there. As far as I know, Councillor Lumley's coming back. Didn't scare him off.
Probably watering his trees.
Yeah. There he is.
Ta-da.
Right on time. And I have 7 o'clock. So I would like to welcome everybody to the council meeting, the regular meeting of council for July 21, 2020, and acknowledge that we're meeting tonight within the Squamish territory. I call the meeting to order, time being 7 o'clock, and ask council for a motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Kroll, Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. And all in favor? Thank you very much. And we acknowledge as well tonight that Council Ladwig is on vacation and not with us this evening. So, moving first into item 3.1, and that is the adoption of the minutes. This is a regular meeting of council for July 7, 2020. And the minutes, recommendation of minutes be adopted. Councillor Kroll, Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Business arising from the minutes. Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. In the minutes, there was a motion that a letter be sent to BC Ferries regarding the ferry schedule changes and the effects on the local business community. So to further to that, I would like to move that letters be sent to both the provincial government and the federal government requesting financial support for BC Ferries in light of the COVID pandemic. BC Ferries, to maintain service and operations, have dipped into their capital funds, which was funds that were set aside for vessel construction and redevelopment of both the Horseshoe Bay and Langdale terminals. So, if we're looking for any sort of improvement with the ferry system, it's not going to happen because of the depth they've had to reach into their resources. So I know the regional district and the district of Sea Shelter are going to be doing it. So I'd like to make a motion that we also petition both the federal and provincial governments for support for the ferry system.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Councillor D'Andrade, discussion? Councillor Lumley.
Is our ferry not the only service that, is it one of two services that actually make money, like the ferry system or the BC Ferries profits from our ferry run?
Yeah, Councillor Kroll, you go ahead.
My understanding currently, our run in the normal sense does make money. Under the current situation, they're not. They're suffering substantial losses. And, the corporation operates as the corporation, not just the run. So, I'm sure there's robbing Peter to pay Paul across the fleet. But, our ferry system is one of the few in Canada that doesn't receive any federal support. And it's certainly been impacted severely with this COVID pandemic. And certainly the federal government is bailing out, a lot of people. So, we have a choice. We either, petition for support, or we suffer the consequences of no additional service, no upgraded terminals.
Councillor Lumley?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with petitioning for the support, but I'm sure if I was a federal or provincial government, I mean, anybody could probably empathize with any other business owner that if I ran my business that way, I'd be out of business. And there's a lot of financial ambiguity with the ferries and how their business model works. Of course, I don't mind petitioning. I'll agree to the motion, but any sentiment that I feel sorry for BC Ferries, or I feel sorry for our ferry service, I don't. I've been back and forth to this town maybe twice, but between May, once late in May and once in June. The ferries were full. There's sailing waits. And again, like I said in a meeting prior, to say that there's a 40-minute sailing wait because of volume, I don't know, just somebody would have to explain that to me, because I would just assume that the ferry would produce a business plan based on being full every run. Like I said, I'll support the motion, but I certainly don't feel sorry for maybe a business that's just, not being run as maybe as properly or as tight as it should be. That's all.
Councillor Kroll, did you have a response, or did you want to?
No, if Councillor Lumley's prepared to support the motion, I don't think we're here to debate BC Ferries business model. It perhaps could do to be adjusted, but they have had restrictions put in place by both the federal and provincial government with their, passenger volumes that they're allowed to carry. The costs have not really gone down proportionate to their revenue stream. So, it is going to impact on all the businesses in the community. So that's the reason I brought it up, is the long-term effect this is going to have on the corporation and the impact for tourism and smaller businesses.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, I certainly recognize that during April and probably May, BC Ferries would have impacted, because we were not encouraging people to come over here, and the ferries were light loaded. But now the ferries are overloaded, almost every one, it seems, and they are back into making business, and they're certainly not providing a great service right now. But if we can do anything to help them, if the federal government, provincial government are prepared to support them, we can ask and do that. Yeah. So all in favor of the motion? Thank you. Thank you. We'll send that letter. Yeah. Okay, we'll go on now to item 5, which is delegations of petitions. We have 2 delegations tonight. 5.1 is Emily Doyle, a Gibsons resident, and wants to talk about road safety and vehicle traffic calming on Glassford Road. So Emily, welcome. And you've unmuted yourself, so you're ready to go. Thank you.
I think so. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you, yes.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Beamish and members of council. My name is Emily Doyle, and I thank you for your time here today. I'm here to talk to you about the need for and the community support of traffic calming on Glassford Road. I moved to Cochrane Road, so 1 street over, last September with my partner and our 4-year-old. As well as being a parent, I'm also a public health nurse in Gibsons, and therefore I see my community through the lens of a parent as well as a public health population lens. So I know that traffic calming can increase safety, it encourages a better balance amongst road users, and can improve the health of the neighborhood by increasing physical activity and improve air quality when more community members choose alternatives to driving. Glassford Road is currently quite wide and straight, and I perceived the vehicle traffic to be much faster on this road compared to other roads in the immediate neighborhood. The road is home to many community members, including families with small children, elderly, community members with disabilities. So I've been connecting with people in the area and hearing they too are concerned about how fast people drive on Glassford, and they would like the town of Gibsons to come up with a solution just like I do. So I decided to create a petition, and I submitted it on Monday, and I walked around the neighborhood and asked folks, at a safe distance, and I had hand sanitizer with me with my pen that was cleaned, seeing if they would support traffic calming on Glassford Road. And the feedback I got was overwhelmingly appreciative and supportive. So many times over, I was thanked for doing the work, and I heard things like, "We've wanted this for years." And I was a bit discouraged by some people who warned me that this issue had been brought up before and nothing had changed. But what excited me about asking for it now was the increase in people using active transport and kids playing in the neighborhood as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think now more than ever, we need our community to be safe for us to all be able to socialize and be out at a safe physical distance, and be inviting for all road users, even the vulnerable ones that don't have the protection of a vehicle. While speaking with neighbors about traffic calming, I heard a variety of solutions. So these included things like speed bumps, road narrowing, sidewalks, crosswalks, roundabouts, street trees, road blockages, street furniture, and speed limit reduction. So it sounds like there's just tons of ways to do this. And I see a lot of examples of these solutions in the roads around Lower Gibsons. I believe the traffic is calmer on the road that I live on Cochrane, because of some beautiful large trees that hang over the road, and it effectively narrows the roadway. And that's what I think has been helpful on my street. Some of these solutions can be done quite quickly and without a huge cost. And maybe as an adaptation to the COVID-19 pandemic, a temporary installation on Glassford Road could be tested while longer term solutions are being decided on. So I spoke to 79 community members about this petition, and 77 adults and one very persistent child wanted to sign. Only one person wasn't supportive. And I did actually talk with a lot of children in the community and heard from them that they would like to have their road safer. This road connects to Ducal Park, and it's also home to one of the larger licensed daycares, Natural Connections. So I'm curious, Mayor Beamish, members of council and town staff, if you have any questions for me, or if you have any ideas for solutions for traffic calming on Glassford.
Well, thank you very much, Emily, for your presentation. And I'm assuming that our corporate officer has received your petition, and so that we'll have that. I'm going to first of all ask council if they have any questions or comments that they want to provide. Councilor Dindrad.
Yeah, I was quite pleased to see the petition, because I noticed, I live in a street that there's a lot of kids that play in the streets, and it makes me so nervous. You have these big cars that come, and people, I don't know what they're thinking, but they are not thinking on the children. Or even people passing, we don't have necessarily sidewalks, and people walking their dogs. And I think it's a great thing to do. If we want more active transportation of seniors, we have 50% of our communities is made of seniors. We want people on the street. With the COVID, I see the impact as long-term, because the economic impacts that are, we haven't even seen necessarily the big wave. And I think one way is to make our local environment better. So we have been discussing with all these ideas of not only active transportation, but the bike corridor. And so I hope to see something coming from that. And the overwhelming support just speaks for itself.
Councillor Kroll?
Certainly appreciate the work you've gone to with this, soliciting the petition and the work you've done. I was resident in Gibsons when there was a horrible accident on South Fletcher Gower Point. And, it involved loss of life, and, traffic calming measures had to be instilled there. So I'm certainly supportive of working with the neighborhood to make it a safer neighborhood for everyone.
Yeah, I too am in favor. I use Glassford Road. I will be honest with you, and I go down to my kayak in the marina, and I come along Gower Point and cut down Glassford to get to Gower Point again and get to the marina. So it is a wide road. It's a road that does invite speed. There's no doubt. I came here in 2002. And the first thing that I was presented with was a proposal to rebuild Franklin Road. And that proposal was essentially a airplane strip, wide and paved, and sidewalks, concrete sidewalks and curb and gutter and both sides of it, sort of thing. And we sat down with the community and we redesigned that and rebuilt that into the Franklin Road that is today. Not perfect, but certainly a more community-based road, sort of thing. And I think Glassford could do the same in terms of having the soft sidewalks on the side, and plantings between the sidewalk and the road, and parking pockets and things of that nature. So I think there is opportunity. You should be aware there is discussion even among the town of looking at whether or not it would be useful to close Glassford Road off at Gower Point, and so not invite that traffic down, but keep it open as a bike throughway connection to Gower Point. And you might have heard that from some of your residents. That did come up previously, and it's something we will be investigating. It's something that, quite frankly, we may want to experiment with for a period of time. What would be the impact of closing it off? Where would that traffic go? Which roads suddenly became the traffic road with a problem, sort of thing? So that would be interesting to do. But I certainly welcome your initiative and that of your neighbors, and we will carry through with that. Now, in terms of planning, these things don't happen overnight, but the discussion is there, and I know that our director of engineering will be in touch on that aspect, and perhaps finding some way to, I don't know how you possibly get together with all the neighbors at this point in time, sort of thing, but some way to find a way to have that conversation in a broader way as to, and look at maybe experimenting with some things, whether it's speed bumps or traffic pinching, as has been done on South Fletcher. And different areas. So there are things that can be done, and I think it's time that particular road got attention that it deserves. So thank you. Thank you for bringing that forward.
Thank you.
Councilor D'Andrade?
Just a clarification, between the minutes that were presented, which is on page 13, there's a 2020-21 VCH Vision Zero Seed Grant Call. Why this document is here? Was this in the previous minutes?
No, that's part of the delegation package. It was provided by the delegation.
Oh,
Delegate's coming forward next.
I know that it was attached to the delegation that was just up
Oh, it's just up, the one just up? Okay, all right, okay,
on road safety.
okay, thank you.
so perhaps it may.
What's that do with it? Yeah.
I don't know if staff had the opportunity to look at that, but it is a seed grant call. So perhaps this could tie up with the work that to support whether Glassford or either other corners. Mhm.
I can speak to that. That I attached that when I initially sent a request to present, and it was a grant opportunity that I became aware of through my work, and the deadline has passed. So it was funding for just this type of initiative to look at road safety, and they were prioritizing responses to COVID-19 and increasing active transport. So there are opportunities out there for funding, and I'll keep an eye out if something like this comes up again and send it on.
Thank you very much, Emily.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Okay, we'll go now to the next delegation, which is Mike Aslop, President of Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society, regarding the 2020 grant status.
And Mr. Mayor, it's actually Gwen Willocks who will be presenting.
Gwen Willocks, okay, welcome. Welcome, Gwen. I see you there. Gwen, you're still muted.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Is-
Got you now.
yeah. Is Mike with us or not with us? Okay, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Okay, I think he has submitted already a report to the town, so I'm not going to read it. Essentially, what the report contains is a report on how the Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society has used a $30,000 grant that was made available for the Franklin Road project. And it was received by the society in November of 2019. And the purpose of the grant was to provide some funds for the society to hire someone who could act sort of as an administrator / project manager to ensure that all the I's were being dotted and T's were being crossed as we went through the process of getting this project going. So they rapidly found out that $30,000 wasn't sufficient to be able to hire someone. The board at that time did take quite a bit of time to tease out a job description, and oh, there's Mike. So they took quite a bit of time, teased out a job description, got some quotes from some of the people that responded to an ad, and they were starting at about $50,000 for a year's contract. Now, a little bit of history there. There was also an approval for a grant from the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund that was approved by the town of Gibsons. We didn't get that actually until just this past summer, a few weeks ago. So we really just had this $30,000. So instead of starting off kind of on an unstable basis, we still have that money. It is still sitting in the Franklin Road account. Now we're hoping that we'll be able to access the additional $50,000 that was booked to be distributed to the society in 2020. And with all of that put together, we'll be able to hire that person to help us proceed not only with the Franklin Road project, but with Shaw Road as well. So that's the gist of it.
Okay, so you're not asking for more money, you're just kind of giving us an update as to the money that has been allocated to you.
Yes, that's right.
It can be used, okay. Yeah.
That's right.
Mike, do you want to add anything?
No, I think Gwen has covered
Okay,
pretty much. We're in the final, we're finalizing the job description.
Yeah.
Which is a little more complex than I thought it would be.
Mhm.
But we want to make sure that currently we have two projects underway.
Yeah.
One, of course, is Franklin. The good news on Franklin is, and this is for council's information, is that Longman seems to have caught up so that we're almost back on schedule. We were looking at some delays because of COVID and everything else that's gone. So that's good news. And of course, we're still pursuing the letter of intent for the Shaw Road project, and that's getting closer. We're having to be very careful how we write the job description to make sure that the successful applicant is aware that anything else that we have that might be in the future in Sea Shelter elsewhere is not part of this mandate. So we're trying to get all of the T's crossed and the I's dotted to make sure that it works for us. And of course, it is financially responsible as far as the town of Gibson is concerned.
Okay, well, thank you. Council, does that have any questions of Mike or Gwen? I guess not. We'll carry on and we will look forward to hearing from you as to who you eventually hire.
We will indeed let you know.
Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to come and talk to us.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, we're now on the first inquiry section of our agenda. And this inquiry section relates to anything that is appearing on this evening's agenda for council to consider. So I would invite the corporate officer to make that available.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, if anybody attending the meeting has a question of council, I ask that they use the raise the hand feature that's at the bottom of the screen. It's a little hand icon, and I'll move you over so your mic and video are available. I'm not, oh, we are having one here, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne Singer.
Hi, me again. Mayor and Council, so my question, I just wrote it down, so I'm going to read it so it's clear. My question relates to number 15 on the council agenda, the motion to close the regular meeting of council. The recommendation is to close under two parts of the community charter. The one that is interesting to me is that the meeting be closed in accordance with section 92A of the charter. And it's a request under the Freedom of Information and Privacy Protection Act if the council is designated as head of the public body for the purposes of the act in relation to the matter. So my question, it's a two-part question. The first part is, does the recommendation at number 15 relate to GABC Society's FOI 2017-14 and the subsequent OIPC file and OIPC order 5/2031?
I can't tell you that because it's in camera.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if in the event that this issue, this recommendation does relate to order 5/2031, and I don't know exactly how to pose this as an inquiry, Mr. Mayor, but it's my understanding that the OIPC adjudicator was very clear in that order that this matter does not, well, let me see, that the council is not the head of the public body in relation to this matter. So closing under section 92, you might need to have a conversation about that. and obviously my concern here is that I believe this issue should be dealt with in public. If it's on the agenda, I would hope that council would address this issue in the public realm.
Thank you very much for your comment. Thank you. Okay, any other questions?
There are not, Mr. Mayor, and I'm sorry, at the opening of the inquiries, I should have mentioned that there can be no questions on any of the bylaws to do with the public hearing that just adjourned.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And there were none. Thank you. We'll go on to committee reports then. And the first item on the agenda is to 7.1, and that's the Planning and Development Committee meeting minutes of July 7th. And this is a motion to receive the minutes. Councillor Lumley, thank you. Councillor Crowell, thank you. All in favor of receipt? Thank you very much. And from that one, as noted, we've already dealt with an issue arising from that, and that was the BC Energy Step Code that was dealt with previously. Administration reports from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding the UBCM Community Excellent Award. Would you please introduce that for the community officer? And you have a copy of this in your package, Council.
Good afternoon, Council. Certainly, so Council has an application that was submitted to the UBCM, the Union of BC Municipalities, for this year's Excellence Awards. And we're seeking a resolution of support from council, which is a requirement to support the application. So the application itself recognizes the town is putting forward the fact that starting in 2014, the town pioneered an approach to municipal natural asset management. And we got a lot of support from many folks, including the province and the Partnership for Water Sustainability, but more specifically from the David Suzuki Foundation, the Smart Prosperity Institute. And for a couple of years, we did a lot of that work and demonstrated what could be possible, which ultimately led by 2016 to the creation of the Municipal Natural Assets Initiative. And the town is obviously a founder of that, and staff like myself and Dave Newman and our Director of Finance as well, we contribute our time where needed to support that work. So that is the essence of the application, Mr. Mayor, and it will be considered for this year's awards later in September.
Okay, thank you. I'll put to council if any questions council have or comments. I would draw council's attention to page 37 and 38, and this is the funding that this natural assets that attracted to the town in recent years is just significant amounts of dollars has come in here for different projects and continue to come, including the $955,000 Canada Infrastructure Program for White Tower Park, Stormwater Park, that was just announced, and which is very strong recognition of the value of this project to our community and as a demonstration to other communities. So we'll see whether UBCM thinks the same. Councillor Crowell?
I'd like to move the recommendation in light of the deadlines that are in respect to it.
Okay. So the first one is to receive the motion, receive the report, and then to council support the town's submission to the 2020 UBCM Excellence Awards as per the attached application. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to say that as per the unfortunately, these resolutions never end up being attached to the application. As per the submission. I'm looking for a date on it, see if it's actually dated. As per the attached application.
July 10th,
Sorry, July 10th, as per the application dated July 10, 2020. Okay. Okay, so all in favor of that? Yeah. Oh, sorry, Councilor D'Andrade, you have a question?
Yes. On page 37, the town of Gibson has incorporated natural asset in financial planning and reporting by evaluating the pond system, and next proceeding to evaluate the Mount Elphinstone watershed. I'm just curious. I mean, is it just a rough estimation or?
CAO? Yeah.
So the work on the watershed evaluation is taking place as part of the Source to Sea project. And so we have the White Tower Park, we've attributed a value to that portion, but not the complete watershed. And ultimately the services it's the services themselves that are valued based on the replacement cost if we had to construct works in the case of our policy to mimic the services that we get.
Sorry, Mr. I did not understand. I mean, I understand obviously the importance of Mount Elphinstone. I just, I'm not clear of the valuation, right? Because we haven't done Charman Creek. And I know this was on the Charman Creek, no, sorry, the Charman Forest. This was on the books. But when I saw Mount Elphinstone, it seems a big endeavor, but I'm just trying to have a sense of what it will encompass this valuation, right?
It encompasses the area that covers the aquifer mapping study. So the 2013 study has to be updated in 2021 or 2022. And because our current asset management policy deals with natural asset more directly, including from under the financial plan, needing to understand about the value of the service and the risk associated with it. So upon the renewal of this mapping study, we're the evaluation we have of that. That's what the source to see project is really about, and it expands.
Not here. Is it just me or the connection is not?
No, it's Manny's connection right now is, yeah, yeah.
Sorry, Manny, I couldn't hear very well.
Hoping you can hear me a little bit better.
Yes. Yeah.
Great. So what I was saying is the valuation that it's to be done on the watershed is to cover the same area that the Gibsons mapping aquifer from 2013 did, because at that time our asset management policy didn't cover natural asset management just yet. In fact, it was heavily influenced by the work of the aquifer mapping study, and so council had authorized, and there's a report coming to you for the 28th on this matter, to expand the valuation area to cover from the existing area of the aquifer mapping study, because from engineering's perspective, if we're having staff here doing, in this case, the natural assets initiative staff doing valuations on most of the town, why not cover the rest of the area? And so that we have a full sense of within the Gibsons aquifer mapping area, what is the natural capital that provides services to the community. That's at the essence that the valuation will do. That's the reference here is to that.
Okay, so had we had funding for it? Have you had funding for this already?
For some of it, and we're coming to council next week to ask you to reallocate a couple of the funding that it's already been approved in the 5-year plan, and putting together 2 different funds to enable to support the extended scope of work.
Okay. I was just putting into perspective with the Charman valuation that's going to cost 50,000, and I thought, wow, the Mount Elphinstone, and just trying to understand if there's any difference of the kind of evaluation.
Cost-wise, it's much more cost-effective for us to do the whole area, and that's one of the reasons. And because we're also doing the coastal assets, a separate related project, by the end of next year, we expect to have assessed all the natural capital that is within the Gibsons proper, or more than the Gibsons proper, within the Gibsons watershed in the coastal areas. It's never been done before, but in the concept of asset management, the first step is inventorying of all your assets.
Yeah.
And in natural capital management, the same applies, and we don't have all of the information that we need about all of our assets. We have large areas that we haven't assessed that. Moreover, because of the tree bylaw that you've considered last week, we anticipate that we'll need to have, from a urban forest planning perspective, a lot more information about the tree density and the quality and the quantity of trees within the watershed. So for council to make decisions about what trees to plant where and to what extent, all of this information can be learned from the evaluation. And so we've been speaking obviously with the Natural Assets Initiative, and because they have some funding they can put forward and for this. So they're looking for some funding as well, and you'll see a report which will probably be on your desk on Thursday morning, considering that tomorrow at the end of the day it has to be done.
It's just because I wasn't aware of this.
Okay, we have a motion. It hasn't been seconded yet. Somebody wanted to second the motion? Councillor Lumley, thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you for putting that together. Okay, next on the agenda is council reports, and invite council to step forward with any reports that they want to make relative to their activities or things that they've done or are going to do. Councillor Crowell, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. It's actually not what I've done. It's what one of our ex-student on councils has done. And it was announced this morning that Jason Lewis is now the alternate director for Area E. So, congratulations to Jason. He was an incredible asset on our team, and I'm certainly looking forward to working with him on the regional district. And I'm sure Director McMahon is looking for a bit of a break, because I know she's had a pretty huge workload, and I think Jason's going to be a huge asset to her and the board. The only other thing, last Thursday was an insane day at the regional district, but sort of weaseled into endless meetings. There was the survey being done in Dougal Park with respect to the necessity of a safe injection site here in Gibsons. Sadly, the CAT team did not get the immediate response that they were hoping for. There was only about 3 or 4 people who actually showed up at the park. And, in retrospect, it's sort of understandable, because I think it was advertised, people were aware of where it was being held, and there may have been sort of an exposure factor come into play. But the CAT team are aware of the members of the community who would benefit from the site. So they were going to expand the survey and do an individual door-to-door canvassing of potential safe injection site users. So we'll be getting a report back from the CAT team with respect to that. Thank you. Oh, one
Yeah.
other
Oh, sorry, Councillor Crowell. Yeah, one other thing.
One other thing, I managed to catch the interview. It was a dialogue between Minister Seamus O'Regan and our MP Patrick Weiler. And I did forward the link to that to council. It was a really great dialogue. I commend Patrick for taking the initiative to, basically set up these one-on-one interviews with other federal ministers. And it was done on Facebook, but then streamed. They did their interview on Zoom, but Patrick did it through his Facebook feed. So he was taking questions from the viewers and forwarding them to Minister O'Regan. So it was really very well done, and certainly kudos to Patrick for doing it, and a lot of valuable information in the dialogue, and I'd heartily recommend that people have a look at it. And it is on Patrick Weiler's Facebook page.
Thank you. Councillor Diendrad?
Yeah, on July 17th, was last Friday, I participated on the seniors planning table. Good. With BC Seniors Advocate Isabel McKenzie. It was quite a interesting meeting, and not only all the players on the calls, all the organizations provided their feedback and what they have been doing, and concerted efforts, right? I mean, we know that because we have been part of that. But so she was quite inspired to see that, and she said she's hopeful for the future, because we have been tested, but the challenge is really now to leverage this support. She talked about the incidence of elders abuse due to the pandemic. She doesn't have necessarily the actual figures, but they have a sense that it has risen by 10 times. So this is quite a big number. And also one of the things that were pointed out is the loss of the seniors daycare and the impact that this is having on the caregivers. So one thing, well, she mentioned there's still no core funding for seniors, for a senior center, because obviously I asked. But one thing that she pointed out in what is important, because the challenge that she has been finding trying to get money for seniors it's really like cohesiveness and having a single message under an umbrella, which it's, by the way, what the seniors planning table has been doing on the coast. So it was, it's interesting. I understand that the town of Gibson doesn't have too many resources, but it was interesting to hear this coming from her, right? And pretty much delivering the message that we need to speak with a united voice and supporting that. So I know we gave a small grant this year, and we don't know what's the future, but that's the message.
Yeah, good. Thank you. You know, between meetings, I mean, we've been meeting every day, it seems, every Tuesday anyway, and other than that, but last Wednesday, Councillor Kroll and I donned our masks and rubber gloves, and we served pizza to the employees. And it was a nice day. We had about, I'd say 20, maybe 25 employees came, and we socially distanced, and it was good because, you know, we've been working so hard and so apart from everybody. It was just good to see everybody and have contact. And, you know, there's nothing like socializing over a meal. And so to have a chance to talk with people. And Councillor Kroll, I appreciate your stepping up and helping do that as well. Last week as well, CIO and myself had an interview regarding the town's response and how the town organized response to COVID. And that's going to be part of a published report. I believe it was LGMA, if I'm not mistaken, was the organization we were interviewed by, and that'll be part of a report coming out on a small town response and how we managed to deal with it. And tomorrow I'll be having lunch with Kelly Reddy. Now, Kelly is the fellow who spearheads the Bear Aware campaign and Protect the Bears. So he lives here on the coast, and I called him up, and we're going to have lunch tomorrow and catch up. Bears are very active right now. I either saw 2 bears yesterday or 1 bear twice, but they're in my neighborhood and on the trails I use, so that they're there. And yeah, and on Thursday night, we'll have a public art committee meeting that'll be held at GPAG if anybody wants to come from 7 till 8:30, whenever everybody gets tired of talking. Okay, so that being said, hearing no more reports, we'll move on then to correspondence. And this is correspondence for the week ending July 7th. And motion of receipt, please. Councillor Kroll, Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. Any items arising for the correspondence the council wants to highlight? Councillor Kroll. Go ahead, Councillor Kroll.
Get the right mouse here. In the time-sensitive material, there's the request for meetings for UBCM, which is being held virtually this year. So, and I think, you know, we should probably have dialogue with the regional district and the district of Sechelt just to make sure, you know, we can possibly put them together to give us a little more time and express a common view. There's the correspondence from Patrick Weiler.
Stop there, Nicole. Can we talk about that first one first?
Sorry.
Yeah, we did talk about it last week, and CIO has been working at it. So, CIO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that based on what we heard from council last week, this afternoon staff submitted our request for the meeting, so we'll wait for those. For next week, we'll also be bringing a report on UBCM's. The format of the meeting and so on is a little bit different this year. But I have been coordinating with Sechelt. We've got their meeting schedules, what the requests were, and several of them were regional meeting. They're being proposed, at least as far as Sechelt and the SCRD are concerned, as regional approaches similar to the last time. So we'll bring those listed on a report to you next week, and then you can confirm that. We still have time to amend our requests up until the August 15th.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, Councillor Kroll, you were saying? Oh, Councillor D'Andrade?
There, in the current correspondence file, there is a link to that Patrick Weiler interview I was commenting on. And there's the Sunshine Coast Tourism charting a course to sustainable tourism. It's a webinar that looks fairly interesting.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Diendrad?
There are at least 2 letters regarding the GDU. So I'm wondering if staff has communicated with them. They are asking about the reimbursement deadline when this happening. So I just want to know if there's a response in this regard.
CAO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We've responded to some of them. I understand I met with Councillor Ladwick as well. She's obviously has written to the residents, and she's been reviewing the correspondence. And she has also asked that the item be brought back to council on the 28th.
Oh,
And we'll have a bit more information for you and a further discussion, as I understand.
One item I believe I circulated to today, it's not on that list, but it's from Lucy McEachran regarding the Prime Minister's Youth Council he's establishing. It came from Patrick Weiler. I believe I circulated, but maybe not. It came from Patrick Weiler, and the suggestion was that we should make our current and past youth counselors aware of it, and with the hopes that one of them might be interested in applying to be on the Prime Minister's Youth Council to represent the Sunshine Coast. So I did send them an email, and now, Councillor Crowell, I got a bounce back on one of them. I was going to ask you for Shasta Stipex for email if you have a better contact than I had. I believe I copied that to you.
Okay.
If you,
I'll forward it to Sasha.
I appreciate that because it bounced back to me and I didn't see it till supper break. So, okay. So yeah, that would be interesting. And Patrick and Lucy were just interested to see if one of our youth council members would be interested in doing that. So. Okay, we're going to go on now. There was a Councilor Diendrad. Yeah.
There's a letter from the
Sneak
mayor.
them in.
Sorry?
I say you sneak them in. Yeah.
There's a letter from the mayor from New Westminster City, and they talk about disaggregated COVID-19 data collection. And I don't know if council had the opportunity to read, but I thought this was really relevant because we know, as a matter of fact, that different communities have different, COVID have different impacts in different communities, usually associated with wealth and health. So I wonder if there's any willingness to support this letter, because I think any action, I think COVID revealed many situations, inequality one of them, and it's tied up with racial and diversity as well. So I wonder if, I don't know if I should make a motion, if council would support this motion, because I think it's quite relevant. I think it's very important. And the dialogue is going right now, right, about racism.
Councillor Lumley?
Yeah, I'd support bringing it into a community of whole discussion.
Yeah, okay. So moving into committee of the whole discussion. Yeah, move it towards a committee of the whole discussion. Would you be in favor of that, Councilor Diendrad?
Yeah, or committee of, okay,
Yeah.
what about timing? This is from July. The next committee of the whole will be September.
Yeah, I generally favor it without needing further discussion, so that I would certainly second a motion if you want to make a motion. See,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the letter to write a letter of support for the mayor's initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll second that because it is September before we're going to have another committee of the whole meeting, and I think that the information is there. So how does everybody feel about it? Is there any further discussion? So I'll call the question. All in favor? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That's passed. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, there's a piece of correspondence from the Honorable Mike Farnworth, Minister of Public Safety, and regarding COVID-related measures and motion that be received. Everybody had a chance to look at that. It's page 43 of your agenda. Yeah. Motion for receipt. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Diandrad, all in favor? Thank you very much. And we'll now move into bylaws. And we have 5 bylaws under section 11. The first one being the annual tax rate deferral bylaw. Council, we started this one last meeting and recommending that the tax sales that would normally go on here in September be deferred for 1 year. And recommendation at this time that the bylaw be adopted. Motion, Councillor Diandrad, Councillor Kroll. Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. The OCP amendment bylaw 98527 for secondary suites. A recommendation that be given 3rd reading. And this is the one that we just had the public hearing on. So that any further discussion or council require any additional information on that one. It didn't get a lot of interest through the public hearing process. So a motion then for 3rd reading. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Lumley, thank you. All in favor of 3rd reading? Thank you. And the secondary suites zoning bylaw amendment 106558. Recommendation that it be given 3rd reading as well. So, thank Councillor Kroll, Councillor Diandrad, thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. And the zoning amendment bylaw 106557 for 1037 Venture Way. And this is for the marijuana production facility. And the recommendation is that bylaw be given 3rd reading. Any Councillor Kroll, Councillor, anybody else on Councillor Lumley? Okay, on 3rd reading discussion. Anybody wish to discuss this? Councillor Diandrad.
I have a question. It just occurred to me, I know the bylaw is approves 4 facilities, right? Cannabis facilities.
That's correct.
I wonder, does it include already existing facilities?
Include, sorry?
Already existing facilities?
No, this would be for a new, this would be a new construction on the property to consistent with the requirements of the federal government in terms of their model. Yeah.
No, I understand this particular, but my question regards the bylaw that we approved. Does it just involves, for example, if we have already 2 facilities in town, does it mean that we are approving only 2 more, or we are approving 4 brand new from?
We don't have any in town. We don't have any lawfully operating production facilities in the community. So this would be the first one applying to become a production facility. They would have to then meet all the requirements of the federal government and ultimately be licensed by the federal government before they would be approved. So. Councillor Diandrad.
Yeah, I have a question. If in case an odor emanates from the facility, what power does the town have?
Well, we have a such a bylaw that would could be enforced relative to odors, but these facilities have to have odor protection. That's part of the requirements of the federal government in terms of construction. They have to have odor protection constructed within the facility, so that if it didn't work, we would just go back to them and say it's not working, and you'd have to redo it so that there is no odor. That's the whole intention.
Okay. So we
Right
we
now-
don't have power,
Right
yeah.
now, you can wander around and you can probably smell some that might be not operate, might be operating illegally. Yeah. So this is strictly to start a process for a business, and I would like to personally, I would like to find out more about this business before we give a fourth reading. I'm comfortable going to third reading, but I don't know enough about the proponents. We have through our bylaw, through our policy, limited the number of production facilities to 4. So by giving somebody a zoning to construct to zoning one for a production facility immediately provides value to that property, because there cannot be another one within 100 meters. And so that we want to be very cautious as to how we use that power, and ensure that the proponent, the proposal itself is one that we support. I haven't been in the same room with the proponent or heard a presentation about his proposal, his or her proposal. And I'd like to know more about it before we give a final reading. So that would be my request to staff if we give it third reading tonight.
Mhm.
Did we get mover and second? Yeah, we did. Yeah, seconder on that. Any further discussion from anybody? Hearing none. All in favor of third reading? Okay, thank you. So that's been given third reading. So final one is the short-term rentals, and this is the bylaw 106547, short-term rental bylaw, and recommend that that also be given third reading tonight. Do I have a mover and seconder on that one? Seeing none. Councillor Lumley, is that you?
I'd like to move it, and hopefully someone seconds it, and then I have discussion. I have an amendment I'd like to make, but
Councillor Kroll has seconded it.
okay.
Thank you. Okay, discussion.
Yeah. I'd like to amend part of the bylaw restricting the owner to be on site. There's a lot of interesting feedback, obviously, during the public hearing, and there's a lot of, I know that I looked at the Squamish, they've been going through the same thing, and they had quite a study done for the town of Squamish in their area, and I mean, when they highlighted 3 different potential bylaws to adopt for that, like this would definitely fit within the 3rd criteria that they highlighted, which is the most restrictive, and I understand why we want to do some restrictions on it, but I'd almost like to ask, I mean, there's a lot of relevant data, and there's also a lot of irrelevant data, but in the public hearing, and also, but there's also a lot of people that spoke well and were intelligent, and I really liked the respect that most of the speakers gave during the public hearing. But I guess, and the fact that we didn't propose any of these bylaw changes for some of the things that were cited, like it wasn't changed to create, it wasn't due to a problematic BMBs. I think it all boils down to, and when you look at studies, it all boils down to the fact that every community is going through it, and it's a fact that there's not enough housing, and specifically rental housing, and specifically affordable rental housing. And for someone, and I understand, like someone that is operating an Airbnb or maybe several, I mean, when they speak in a public hearing, they're speaking for themselves and their business existence. But I mean, it comes down to the fact that you can't argue the point that Charlottetown, there's an interesting study done by McGill University, which which Charlottetown PEI hired them to do. And like out of the 193, when they did the study, out of 193 Airbnbs on their market, 138 were former long-term rental units. To say that the fact that there's an increase in Airbnb traffic in Gibsons would almost be alarming to me, to the fact that there's more Airbnbs being created in Gibsons. But I think one of the comments too was, I also don't think that, I think that maybe being that restrictive might actually punish a legitimate small business, somebody operating a small business. I think some of the comments by Mr. Savard, I mean, he has 5 long-term rental units and 1 Airbnb, which he's not present on at his Airbnb. So it'd be almost like we're punishing him, but he's also creating rental units, and he is part of the community. But all these studies, there's so many of them out there in Portland, Oregon, like all these people that have dealt with, every community has the same needs when it boils down to it. And it's housing, it's like rental housing, and it's affordable rental housing. It's all the same. And even if you looked at even Gibsons, even if we had a 2% increase, which a lot of these places had 2% upticks once they ratified a lot of their more strict short-term rental bylaws, they'd have a 2% uptick. So they'd go from like 1.2 to 3%. So even for Gibsons, 2% uptick, that'd be like 35 homes or 35 availabilities for people that can find rental units in the town. So I think we're on the right track. My suggestion was that not that the people have to live on site, but maybe that the people have to be residents of the community to operate a B&B, whether they're on site or not. There's going to be a large percentage of them that are. We don't know the exact numbers, but a lot of these studies compared that. And there's probably like usually around, like even in Squamish and Charlottetown, about 60% of the people already were kind of there. But my thinking was that just ease back on that restriction and say that they're actually residents, like full-time residents of Gibsons, and they can operate Airbnb. And then if they want to operate a second Airbnb, well, then maybe we should build in something where they'd have to match that with a long-term rental. Before the first public hearing, I went online. There were 2 rental units available in Gibsons for rent on Craigslist, which obviously many people use and advertise on. And there was 180 short-term rentals available in Gibsons. So there are 2 rental units, 180 short-term rental units. So I don't think the argument against the fact that it doesn't impact rentals is mute. It's a foolish argument. But I would like to ease back that a bit, and I don't know if that makes any sense for you guys. It's discussion. I just wondered. Those were kind of my sentiments. Not to punish, but maybe dissuade. Someone from Vancouver coming in and buying 3 or 4 properties and running short-term rental units out of them and paying the properties off. We can all agree that it's taking out long-term rentals, and it's increasing property values and making it less affordable to live here. So those are my thoughts. I'd like to hear yours.
Other comments from council? Councillor Crowell?
I certainly like where Councillor Lumley is coming from with this. Last week after the public hearing, I can appreciate where people want to be able to rent a facility and not have the landlord breathing down their throat. I will admit myself, here in Gibsons, we did a family reunion, and we had family coming from England and Australia and Scotland. And I rented a house. Now, admittedly, the owner was absent, but there was a local resident caretaker who was amazing. She was, she walked us through the house when we took it over. There were a couple of things that came up. She was right on them. So I can certainly appreciate that aspect of it. And I would certainly support Councillor Lumley's amendment that if the owner is resident in the community, And I've got a feeling the corporate officer wants to say something. No, that, if the owner is resident in the community, that, that we, sort of work with them. Some of the Airbnbs that have been upgraded to the quality of Airbnb, I have a bit of concern that they will come back into the long-term rental market because of the investment the owners have put into them, the fact they've furnished them. They may not come back into the rental community. But I think we need to get some control on it. I would take it so far that if someone is off coast operating an Airbnb and they want to continue it, that it's a business and they pay business taxes on the property.
Councilor Diandrad?
Thanks, Mayor Bimish. Yeah, I have issues when you're trying to address one problem, but you create another big problem. So one thing that I noticed in the survey, at least when I read again the results of the survey, it talks about hosted. I don't see clearly feedback from unhosted. So I almost felt that this group was excluded. So that to me is already a problem. I think another issue is, what Councillor Lumley said, it would address, right? I live here, but I want to spend 4 months away. I rent my 4 months or whatever I put in the market. But I have an issue with people who have cottage homes here, sometimes even, for generations, but they do want to offer an accommodation, which, by the way, we don't have. I had family coming from Brazil and was tough to find a nice place for them. We don't have nice hotels like mainstream hotels. So in this regard, houses there, whether in the shore, in the waterfront homes, there's a whole wedding industry here that in the Sunshine Coast that we all support. It's part of the tourism. So these are the public. You rent this type of homes, right? When you have a wedding or when you have guests coming from all over the world. So and given the fact, obviously, that some people, I myself, I don't want to be in a hosted place. I tend to prefer unhosted as well. So and another thing as well, we have not received the results from the Sunshine Coast Housing Needs Assessment. And even though I understand that tourism displaced people, I study tourism extensively. I know the impacts of a tourism industry, and this will be one of them. But at the same time, we have not heard from the housing assessment. They might identify other issues. So would a waterfront house, will go back as a full-time rental market? I don't think so. So I don't have I think what Councillor Lumley proposed is a step up from the bylaw, but I still find difficult that suddenly people who have established business for many years or have cottage homes from generation, we are just saying, sorry, you cannot rent anymore, even though knowing that this type of homes will not go back to the long-term market, right? So I would prefer, there was even a suggestion of a working group. It's surprising that this didn't happen because it is a big industry that we are talking about. And we find solutions that I truly believe in consensus in trying to maximize benefit for everyone. And we might have to look at specific cases just to allow people who reside here. I find a little bit of a challenge. It's a good move, but I still find, what about if I have, my family has a house here for 100 years? Am I just suddenly be excluded? I may depend this even to pay my other residents. So I would prefer like, first of all, to postpone this bylaw, wait for the needs assessment by the Sunshine Coast Housing. We're in the midst of the pandemic. I think it's not fair to do anything right now. We talk about helping business. Suddenly to put a big impact on people who depends on this money, I think is pretty brutal. And I would like, in the meantime, we wait for the housing assessment and we work in solutions that probably would nail most possibilities. So we will have a bylaw that doesn't penalize most people. Maybe in some cases people will have to give up, but I would like to look at this further.
I'm going to step in there just for a second. My big concern, I mean, a lot was said, and a few people who spoke at the public hearing. There weren't that many who spoke, and many who spoke for 2 or 3 times and 4 times, sort of thing. But one of the issues on short-term rentals, and when you have so many in the community, is you're not building community based upon vacant houses and hotels and neighborhoods. You don't know your neighbors. Your neighbors don't know you. You don't know who's on the street. You don't know who's coming and going. For seniors, the whole issue of social isolation is even that much more significant because they can't build a relationship with the neighbor next door because there is no neighbor next door. And this was the whole reason we were looking at this sort of thing. I was looking at this. In January, we got a call from residents who were very concerned because of the pandemic, because people had showed up at the Airbnb across the street from them, which was a house, which is owned by a doctor in Minnesota. And when I talked to him, hey, that's how I'm paying for my house so that I can own a house in your community, rent it out. And there were 3 short-term rental houses sitting empty on a normal basis between rentals on that street. And the street basically says, well, we don't have a neighborhood anymore. I've seen communities where though they have lost their community, they've lost their businesses because short-term rentals sit idle at certain times of the year and they don't support a business community. So that was a big part of what we were concerned about in doing this is building community. That's why we said, that there are legitimate short-term rentals. We originally had started off saying, well, it must be in the same house. And then we debated, well, no, what if you've got a cottage in the back? Could it be in the cottage? Well, okay, then we changed it to, it must be on the same property. And now we're going to, it must be in the same town. And sooner or later, it's going to be, well, it must be in the same province. I recall at the regional district board listening to one of the presentations from one of the short-term rental management companies. And they said, yeah, we welcome the guests. We make sure everything's taken care of for them. But if there's a problem, don't call me, call the police, because that's not my job. It's not to deal with the problems of that nature. And why should it be the police's problem? Because we have people who 1 week to the next, we don't know who's going to be in that house, and nobody does. And some suggestion on the thing, it was a money grab from the town. Well, there's no money grab from the town. We're not making money on this. It's just straight business licenses for people who are operating a business and making money. But the problems of noise, the problems of parking, the problems of lack of social connection to the community, lack of ownership in the community. People who come and stay, and the more you build into, the more short-term rentals you have. Hey, I wouldn't mind having a second house and having somebody pay for me in a short-term rental, because it's easier than establishing a residential tenancy relationship with somebody. That's harder to work at. So I understand the attractiveness in it. And besides that, you're going to make more every month. And eventually you lose community. And that's what it all comes down to. And you're not supporting your local business. You're not supporting your hotels that are still struggling out there to have business. We have 3 hotels in this town. They struggle for business. Yet we say, oh, we have competition for you, and that competition will grow. So I am in favor of this bylaw. I am in favor of putting accountability on people and saying, okay, if you live on the property, I mean, that's the whole concept of the bed and breakfast, was you had to live on the property, you had to serve a breakfast. That's how it all started. Now we've got all the kind of the suites that were approved years ago as affordable housing. That's how they were justified, putting suites in places, because it would provide affordable housing in the community. Now who's providing affordable housing? The next developer that comes to town, we're asking money so that we can support the Affordable Housing Society to build more affordable housing in the community, because we're losing that affordable housing. Because those suites have suddenly become short-term rentals because it's easier and more profitable. So I think we've gone through that discussion. We've gone through the study in the town, and we've had those discussions. So I'm in favor of moving forward with the bylaw. But hey, I could be in the minority, and I'm not worried about that. I've been there before, but I do speak for community, and that's what I speak for. Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I certainly agree with, everything you're saying. I appreciate where Councillor Lumley's coming from. Something with respect to the Airbnbs, and it's this whole, business license situation. If we defer this, then, they're going to continue to operate in this gray zone where bylaw has no authority to deal with them, which is problematic. Also, we have to consider our neighbors. The regional district is working on a short-term rental bylaw. The District of Seychelle's working on one. So, if we suddenly go rogue and start changing things, then the one thing at the onset of this that we were going for was consistency on the coast. So everyone was playing relatively with the same deck. I certainly appreciate where Councillor Lumley's coming from. And if, someone has a second property and they do live in the coast and they are managing it themselves responsibly, I'd be willing to consider that. But I think, we do have to get a handle on it. And there was an excellent podcast through Marketplace, CBC, talking about the impact. Here's a classic example: a residential building in Toronto with 1,800 units, 1,100 of them are Airbnb. And because of the restrictions on travel, all the landlords of these, or the owners of these units, are panicking because they've had no income for the last 100 days. Their mortgages are going into default. They're madly scrambling. The units themselves were inflated because they were purchased by people who knew they could get 3 times what they could get rental. So now you've got a huge tower sitting empty, which probably owners are going to be defaulting on their mortgages. And a lot of the people looking for Airbnbs have gone into Prince Edward County, which is impacting terribly there. The main street has, in the off season, has become a ghost town because all the Airbnbs are closed up. The tourist industry that supports the Airbnbs is closed up, and the local residents have no resources. So I totally agree with Mayor Beamish's concern about the impact on community. Who do you turn to when everyone's gone?
Councillor Diendrad.
I find quite interesting the conversation because Mayor Beamish, you just touch upon on the issues. It's trying to solve one situation and creating another problem. So the secondary suite concept came to solve affordable housing, which makes a lot of sense because usually a secondary suite is smaller, people who have issues with affordability, obviously, especially in this expensive market, they would go for the small place. But now you can rent, you can do a B&B, short-term rental. So now we come up with this bylaw, and now we're gonna punish the people who have, let's say, bigger properties in the waterfront, perhaps some for generations, and they're doing this as a meaning of, they have family, maybe different members of the family come in different times. Sometimes there are units that are owned by, a big family, right? So each one takes a turn, and then perhaps in some occasions they rent. These properties probably won't address affordable housing. So I think I'm here just because I am supportive of addressing the problem, but I fear that we are coming up with a bylaw that I don't know how far it's going to address, but then all the secondary suites, I guarantee that over 50% will be used for short-term rental. So we are almost saying, okay, And these are the suites that people with affordability would take more than anything. So that's the problem there. We are trying to, every time we cover a hole, we create another one. I would like to put more thought and create some sort of plan that could be sustained in the long term. Because right now it feels that we are punishing some people to release for something that we don't even know if we're going to attain. Because just the example you gave is a big one. And I agree with you with the problems with community and all, but I don't see that by doing, just allowing short term, we would address affordability. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced.
Okay. Councillor Lumley, did you make a motion, or were you making a motion, or it's, I mean, the motion
Motion's on the table.
for third reading is on the table. That's the motion on the table. You provided an alternate idea, but did you make a motion?
I did not make a motion or write a motion, although I would make a motion to amend it so that I had a couple ideas there, but
Let me jump you, okay? I'm going to make a motion to defer so that we can have a full council to discuss this, and that we defer it to a September meeting of council when we're all present. Councillor Lumley?
I would agree with that. I would second that, because we're in the middle of summer right now anyway, and it's a hotbed of short-term rental. But yeah, we could have statistics from the summer as well to ponder in September. So I would.
Motion to defer is not debatable. All in favor of deferring till the meeting in September, first meeting in September? Opposed to deferring?
Actually, if I could,
You can say anything you want now. It's been passed, so.
okay, I think I was going to be supportive of a motion that we wait the results of the Sunshine Coast assessment, because they are going to present.
And we can still do that, but we need, I believe we need to have Councillor Ladwig in those conversations as well, and give her a chance to read all of the submissions that came in as well, and the report. But we haven't had, I mean, this was a much more complex public hearing than the other one, and it should be a report generated sometime over the summertime, and then in September, whether it's the first meeting, the second meeting, when staff is ready to bring it back in September, then I would support that. So defer to a regular committee, or if you want to, well, I defer, because we can then do what we want with it at that time. We can also put it back. So that then that motion passed, by the way. So that
I'll support.
Thank you, Councillor Curl.
I was just going to say, with respect to Councillor D'Andretti's comments, apparently the response to the housing needs assessment survey was, in my estimation, was rather pathetic. I think there was something like 74 people responded.
No, we responded today. There was over 600 responded.
Okay, well then I know they were putting a push on it, because the response was really pathetic.
Yeah, over 600 responded. And then, I mean, if you believe surveys, take a look at the one in the Coast Reporter that's going right now. So yeah. Okay, so we agreed to do nothing right now, and that's fine. Doing nothing is actually an action. So going on to new business, I put it back on the agenda, the critical incident protocol for organizing against racism and hate. This was, as you recall, the presentation we received last week from April Struthers, and I informed council that I would be bringing this back for council consideration. And I've once again reviewed the material that April provided. I am somewhat concerned that we have had over the past 4 years issues relating to both racism and hate and other factors that none of us support. And the whole idea of this protocol was to join with other communities in standing up for the rights of everybody, but standing up opposed to the more challenging things of racism and hate and issues that we can come across in a community. So I was going to propose a motion, which is actually on page 70 of your agenda package, with amendments to make it appropriate. And basically what it would read is that if you agree, I mean, we can do this as an organization, or we can individually take the same pledge. But I would propose and move that council passes the critical incident response protocol for organizing against racism and hate. And the resolution would read, Gibsons Council believes that it is desirable for all residents of Sunshine Coast to enjoy the privileges of living within a free, welcoming, inclusive, and civil society. And we believe that no resident or visitor of Sunshine Coast ought to suffer from the effects of harassment, intimidation, threat, hateful actions, physical injury, damage to their property, or other forms of violence which are motivated by bias. This includes, but is not limited to, any bias upon their race, religion, religious belief or non-belief, cultural origin, ethnic origin, perceived or actual sexual orientation, gender or gender identity, economic status, disability status, or social status. And we believe it is a duty of all residents acting individually and together to strive for the achievement of a community in which we acknowledge our diversity by affirming our differences and welcoming the contributions that arise from each resident's unique gifts. And we believe that every resident has a right to experience a sense of belonging to this community that arises from our daily commitment to creating a better world. Therefore, as the authorized representatives of the town of Gibsons, we accept and agree to work towards the effective implementation of policies and practices within our local government that recognize, affirm, and encourage the inclusion of all, and we commit to the implementation of the integrated response to racist, homo, transphobic, and hate-based critical incidents which are the subject of this protocol. And we encourage all residents and visitors to the Sunshine Coast to welcome and engage with each other in ways that incorporate the principles of inclusion, affirmation of difference, and broadening of our understanding of one another, so that these principles shall be evident in ways in which we live and work together. So I would move that if everyone cares to second it for discussion. Councillor Kroll, seconded. Councillor Diandrade, you want to?
I'm just well, I fully support that, but I'm just trying to go further into implementation. I'm assuming that this could be distributed to schools and to, I don't know, to business, or I don't know, is there any protocol that follows this? And even newcomers to, you know, people that buy homes here, perhaps they are handed some sort of.
Yeah, I think April Struthers, her organization, promotes this program, this protocol. And, you know, for example, we're looking already at our one bylaw as our street naming bylaw, where it's basically settlers and volunteers, and saying, well, what about the indigenous people who were here first? Should we not be recognizing their contributions and their culture? So that those are the kind of things we can do when we come across bias in a bylaw. We would acknowledge that and look for ways to amend it, but also looking for ways to take in a general consistent stand against behaviors that are described in here, so that everybody knows where Gibsons Council stands on these matters. And we can put this on our website.
Okay, yeah, I'm just trying to understand how a person that is not sitting here right now would have access to this message in 6 months, in 1 year, right? That's what I'm saying. I understand internally when we adopt what we can address, and I'm sure the town of Gibsons as well, their employees, but I'm just trying to see how in the community as a whole, the message from council can come across.
I think it comes across in our own behaviors, at council, and in the way that we stand up and call out bad behaviors in the community when they occur, when they come to our attention. I think being consistent and having that consistent message is important. Councillor Crowe, were you?
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I was just going to say, with our youth counselors, this is the sort of thing that they can take back to the high schools. We interact with the Board of Education, and as you indicated, April Struthers, we talked about it when she did her presentation last week, that a lot of this needs to start with very young children. So it's something that can be, carried forth to the daycares, the libraries, any point that there's social interaction. So I think it's a valuable guideline.
Councillor Diendrad?
I like the idea of the website.
Yeah. From the website, and looking at it again, speaking to it when asked. I think that April is going to be working with the Capital Island University on a program involved, being identified as a supporter of that program that she has. Her ability to identify us as a signatory and supporter, along with Seashell and the SCRD and others, sort of thing, and individuals who have signed it. If council's willing, April might be on the air on the site. April, are you there? Yeah. April, are you hearing the conversation? And
yes, I am.
Yeah. And how would you see that this is promoted? How do you promote this through our community and elsewhere?
Through a series of community engagement systems. And what we've done over the last 6 or 8 years in this community is find out which ones work in this community. So we have some very effective ways of interacting deliberately and with dialogue and in ways that model the best nonviolent communication around these very difficult issues. And we have a way of getting down to the nitty-gritty about people's behavior and about what neighborhoods want to do about it and what other community groups want to do about it. And we have a number of partners that we work with in this as well. We work with the Reconciliation Movement, and we work with the Restorative Justice Program. And so we can bring to bear, if there are incidents, a number of partner activities that are meaningful and get to the depths and of these sensitive sort of incidents. So we have quite some capacity that's been built here to do things. Now we're expecting that there will be additional funding coming to lay out a program of activities that we don't have yet. So I can't tell you exactly what that would be, but I could give you a long list of what we have done in the past that has worked. It includes dialogues and film festivals. It includes theater presentations, story writing contests, working with other groups that are advocating for equal treatment and equity of some kind. So there's a whole slew, a whole range of activities that we can be doing. We don't know exactly what we are going to be doing, but we can, I think, predict that what we do is pretty effective and that we know how to do both broad and deep community engagement around this. So I'll look forward to keeping you certainly informed on what the plan is. There's an advisory group from the community that directs my work, and they will be doing that if we get continuing funding. And I would be glad to keep everybody informed of what that means, and to invite you into our training and into partnership if that is also appropriate with the activities that we're doing.
Thank you, April. And I think we've seen enough in the last 2 years to recognize that there are issues, pockets of issues on the coast. And I think the other thing this provides is a touchstone to anybody to be able to say, hey, this is our position on these issues. It's no longer in this day and age acceptable to be apathetic towards racial discrimination or hatred towards other in the community. We have to take a position. We have to speak out against it. And I think our council has done that, and I think that this just reinforces that. Councillor Kroll?
A question I'd like to direct to April is, have you ever used in any of your programs the sort of Kid Smart approach?
I'm not quite sure what the Kid Smart approach is.
Kid Smart was a business actually started here in Gibsons, and what they did is they provided material for entertaining children in various scenarios, but usually the material created had a good sort of education or moral value to it. And it was actually a business. It was started up on Kiwanis Way, and I believe now they've relocated. The business has changed hands and it's relocated to Vancouver. But it was sort of, you know, sort of creative projects, but taught a lesson.
Right. We would certainly consider doing anything that we think is effective. And we have in the past had partnerships in the schools that have worked very well, using material that was age appropriate and carried a message in a way that could be heard, because that's key to all of this as well. This is not a set of issues that you can preach about or that you can point fingers or shame and blame about. That simply doesn't work. So ways that engage, including the Kid Smart type approach, certainly we'll look at all of those. And we also have regional networks of other communities who developed lots of material. And at one point we used material that we had developed on the Sunshine Coast and took it to 8 different communities on Vancouver Island, because they wanted to use some of the techniques that we had developed here. So we do share material and we do use whatever we think would be effective.
Okay, thank you, April. And in the interest of time, I'm going to call the question here in terms of how many council support the adoption of the resolution. So, Councillor Lumley, have we lost you? Yeah, support. Okay, thank you. That's passed, and thank you, council, for passing that. And I think that is a good position to take. And I think now, after 2 years, we understand it more, and we understand the impacts in our community. So, okay, there's no notice of motion that I'm aware of. So we'll go to inquiries, and this is our second inquiry section, and this involves anything.
And Mr. Mayor, at this time, I'll ask anybody who's attending the meeting who wishes to ask a question of council to please use the raise the hand feature at the bottom of the screen. And I'm not seeing any, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. And we will then take a motion to close. I'd just like to thank everybody for attending tonight and participating. Those of you who came back after the public hearing, I hope you're not overly disappointed with what we did with that, if you were looking for a decision. But I thank you and all of you and staff who have been sitting in their chairs since 3 o'clock like we have, and we're not finished yet. So I'd like a motion to close the meeting. The recommendation the meeting be closed in accordance with the sections 91, 1E, I, and 92A of the Community Charter. Acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land, improvements of council considered disclosure of a reasonably interested municipality, receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, and a request under the Freedom of Information Act, Privacy Act, if council is designated the head of the local public body for the purpose of the act in relation to the matter. Okay, a motion. Councillor Kroll, thank you. Councillor Lumley, thank you. And we will then adjourn this meeting. No, we'll adjourn this meeting. We will close off this meeting, portion of the meeting, and we will, and the Lindsay Grist will tell us what we're going to do. Sorry for presuming I knew. Yeah.
Have a vote on the closing.
Oh, all in favor of closing. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, we did that. Okay. Okay, so we are closed to the public, and Lindsay will clear the boards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, Mr. Mayor, the public is now out of the meeting, but I'll remind council that I sent out a link earlier to a different meeting. So I'll close this one down if everyone could use the link into the
Go
secure.
and come back. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.